We've heard a lot about energy this week, both in terms of energy security, like why have we allowed the price of oil to go from $10 a barrel to $70 or $80, and we're sending all that money to Ahmadinejad and the Saudis, and people are going to use it against us, and also about the carbon and what it's doing to our problems with global warming. Is there a sense that you could do something dramatic in this next year to really try to reduce both our dependence on foreign oil, more than the 2012, is it, plan? 2010. And reduce the emissions of carbon?
Yeah, let's take the fuel first. Yeah, yes, there is something. And let me see here, which one should I send you to? Why don't you go to...
Can we get it back on there? Yeah.
Let's go to slide 5. 20 and 10 is the proposal the President laid out in the State of the Union address, which a Supreme Court decision then said we had authority under existing authority, which we didn't think we had, but they said we do have, to in essence put the 20 and 10 plan largely in place by regulatory structures. 20 and 10 basically aims to reduce our petroleum use by 20% in the next 10 years. And the object is that 20% represents about the percentage of our oil supply that we get from the Persian Gulf. Now, the reason that oil prices are high is that world demand is high, particularly because of the escalation of demand in China and India. And world production is relatively flat, and if demand is rising, then you're going to get an increase in price. 20 and 10 is, there are 4 lines over there. The yellow line at the very bottom represents what the current CAFE standards mandated under law would lead to. Now, there's an odd thing in CAFE standards. Under the law, the Department of Transportation is allowed to regulate CAFE standards for light trucks. And we do. We have a very aggressive reform of light trucks, which I think has now been in place for 2.5 years, which is having a significant impact on improving CAFE among light trucks. CAFE for passenger cars is figured in a different way and is set by Congress. Congress literally plucks a number out of there and puts it in, and it's a fleet-wide number. And as a result, has a bunch of weird perversions in it that work to the disadvantage of U.S. companies and to the advantage of foreign companies and drive fleets towards the production of smaller vehicles to offset their big vehicles, and it has all kinds of distortions. What we'd like to do is take and apply to passenger cars what we do with light trucks, which is our reform was to say, we're not going to allow you to have a fleet-wide number. What we're going to say is that there are going to be bins based on weight. So that if you've got a light truck that's a small light truck, you're going to have to be forced to make fuel savings compared to all other small light trucks. And if you've got a big honker, you've got to have fuel efficiency improvements versus all other big honkers. So we look at the fuel efficiency standard of vehicles in a like weight class and say you've got to have constant improvement in each one of these bins towards an annual target of, in this instance, nearly 4%. We want to do that for other vehicles as well, for passenger vehicles, so that if you've got a small car or a mid-range car or a luxury car, you don't get evaluated on the basis of the entire fleet mix. So if you're able to sell a bunch of small cars, it allows you to have no improvement in the big car. Or if you've got no big cars, it allows you to have a smaller improvement in your little car. Instead, we're going to say we're going to compare all of these weights of passenger cars to each other and require there to be 4% improvement per year. Now, that's a long way of saying we want to get something we haven't yet gotten. If we leave things the way they are, the fuel standards are going to improve along that yellow line. If the fuel standards go up as are now currently written under the House bill, they will be the line on the extreme right. That is to say, you can see that it takes a lot longer to get up.
The red line, right?
Excuse me, yeah, I'm sorry, the red line. As you can see, it takes a lot longer to get from where we are to where they want to be, which is 35 miles per gallon. You get there about 2025. Under the Senate bill, which is biofuels only, you get from where we are today to 36 by 2022. If you take the President's proposal of 20 and 10 and do the reform that requires improvement in all weight classes for all classes of vehicles, you get to 35 in 2015. Now, that may shock some of you who think that the President should be arguing for lower standards taking longer. But we think technologically this is possible and doable, but only if we change the way by which we monitor and measure the standard. And instead of saying Toyota gets to compete with a fleet definition that is much narrower than GM, and GM has to find a way to make lots of cheap small cars and give them away in order to hit the fleet-wide number. Instead, everybody's got to improve in every class. You actually get there faster by doing that. Now, we don't have the authority to do the CAF-A standards in 20 and 10, but we do have the ability to do all the stuff that we want to do with setting standards for renewable and alternative fuels, which will allow us, which is going to be a principal driver in allowing us to get to 20% reduction of where we would otherwise be in 10 years.
I understood the general theory of relativity. I'm having trouble with this, which is, why not?
Green is Bush. I'll make it simple, Walter. Green is Bush and is better. Orange is Senate and not as good. And red is the House and not good at all. Not
That's why I
acceptable.
couldn't understand it. Why not something simpler, just saying, let's have higher tariffs on foreign oil that are coming either from, Venezuela, Saudi Arabia, Iran. Why not have carbon taxes, and why not take that money and plow it back to the people, whether it's a Montana ranch or whatever gets hard?
Yeah.
Let the market take care of this and charge people
the
for polluting.
market is taking care of a lot of this by having sustained higher energy prices.
Well, that's just sending the money to Ahmadinejad.
Yeah, well, frankly, tell me how we're not going to be sending money to Ahmadinejad if well, first of all, we don't buy from Iran, incidentally.
Well, it's on the world market.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, there we go. I wanted you to make that admission so I can use it against you later on.
Thank you.
But look, there's no way, if you're going to say we're going to have higher energy prices brought about by a carbon tax or by a tariff, and then we're going to try and sort it out so that the fact that it applies less to somebody who lives in a highly congested metropolitan area with relatively well-developed metropolitan transit authorities is going to have less of an impact than somebody who lives in a more rural part of the country. And we're going to somehow try and figure out how we can ameliorate all that. It's not easy to do.